Why going to North Korea to fly on the vintage Soviet fleet of Air Koryo? Think about the opportunity to fly on all of these airplanes that is almost extinct, not even available in Russia, but they're all flying in North Korea. So the only way to enter North Korea is from China or Russia by plane or by train. The first time I flew to North Korea was from Beijing on board Air Koryo Illusion 62. So the airline doesn't sell tickets online. You have to join an organized tour in order to get your air tickets. I went on board and went all the way to the back, sat on the very last row window and next to two North Korean gentlemen on board. And when the engine started after pushback, it was like music to the ear. It was so screaming loud. So the flight was about 1.5 hours long, and we flew northeasterly out of China towards North Korea. When we passed the Yalu River, there was an announcement made on board. We are now in North Korea. So what to expect on the one-star airline? Actually, we're all served a free meal and drinks on this 1.5 hour international flight. The flight attendant, they were running up and down the aisle to serve on this short flight. And they're very efficient and polite, but they are not very happy with people taking pictures around. And then here comes the landing. It was one of the screaming, the loudest noise I ever heard from an engine. I was told Pyongyang airport doesn't actually have an ILS. So all our landing were visual approach. And after the landing, I went up to the cockpit. They were kind enough to open the door to let me see the massive green colored cockpit of the Illusion 62, which requires a team of 5 technicians to fly the airplane. 2 pilots, 1 engineer, 1 radio controller, and 1 navigator. So after landing, we were taken to the old passenger terminal, Pyongyang. It's an old building and it was completely dark. They just switch on the lights when passengers start to arrive. So after passing the immigration and the custom, we all have to surrender our mobile phones. You will get them again on the day when you depart from North Korea. So after our arrivals, we met with 2 young ladies. They're our tour guides from Korea International Travel Company, which is a government department that handle most visitors. Our tour guides are actually very fluent in English and they're very knowledgeable about their country. I have to say they are probably elite among the North Korean to be able to meet foreigners representing their countries. They're very well educated. At the same time, they serve as a minder, observing you during your whole stay in North Korea. By joining an aviation tour means we get to fly around the country and see way more than those are on a standard 5 days, 4 night fixed itinerary, just normally stay in Pyongyang and go to DMZ and back. We actually flew a 1960 made Illusion 18 from Pyongyang to Samjiyon, which is at the very north of the country bordering China. It was an incredible flight with the noise from a massive props, 4 massive props of Chanko 20 engines. And I gotta give them credits by keeping the plane pristine and then completely manual flying a heavy prop. And then we got to climb up to Mount Pakto, which is a sacred mountain for all Koreans, which is also rumored the dear leader was born in Mount Pakto. So during the pandemic, Air Koryo, the national airline of North Korea, did not fly outside North Korea for almost 3 years, as the country was completely closed. Only until late 23, they started resuming flight to Beijing and later to Shenyang and Vladivostok in Russia. There's only 3 active airplanes currently flying. 2 of them are the Tupolev 204 and 1 Ukrainian-made Antonov 148. No one have any news about whether the Soviet Illusion 62 or the Tupolev 154 or 134 or the Antonov 24 or Il-18. These planes are still currently flying. So in 2014, the second time I traveled to North Korea, again was from Beijing. But this time, I was on board a Tupolev 204, a modern Russian-made twin-engine jet, instead of the Soviet Illusion 62, which was actually banned from going to China due to the noise abatement issue. And after landing, I got to see the modern Tupolev 204 cockpit. We were also able to try out a brand new airplane. So the Antonov 148 is the brand new airplane that Air Koryo has received since 1985 when they received the two Tupolev 134 factory new. That was more than a quarter of a century ago. We did a short sightseeing flight, take off from Pyongyang. Back after 40 minutes. When we came back, it was a really hard landing. So here's the question. Can you walk alone and explore North Korea at your own pace? And the answer is no. You must be accompanied by not only one, but two tour guides at all times. So since the tour guides accompanying us everywhere and observing us, are they scary? No, they're actually very fun to be with. They're extremely intelligent and very skillful at singing and playing instruments, especially at the karaoke. Of course, it's a heavily controlled tour. We're on a fixed itinerary and we're taken to a lot of spots that is celebrating the country, and we must bow in front of the dear leader's statue. Those who do not respect the country and the leaders will be taken note by the minders. The only place you get to meet a lot of North Korean folks is inside the Pyongyang Metro, which is deep under the ground and pretty grand. And they were using all these East German decommissioned metro cars running around 30 years later inside Pyongyang. So now let's talk about the hotel. Where did we stay in North Korea? Our tour actually stayed in the Twin Towers of Koryo Hotel, which is considered a 4-star local hotel. There are actually a very few hotels receiving foreign tourists. So the most memorable trip for me to North Korea happened in 2016. We attended the first international air show from North Korea, the Wonsan Air Show. It felt like turning 50 years back in time there. It's very rare to see the North Korean Air Force in action, at least showing to the Western world.
The pace of the display was impressive, with one aircraft displaying while the next sat at the holding point ready for takeoff, and the one after that starting engines in the parking area. We asked the organizers how they did such a slick job on their first ever air show, and they said they watched videos and DVDs of Riyadh, Farnborough, and other famous events abroad. They did a fantastic job.
The crowd are so excited every time when there's a helicopter flying over past them, and with all the music going on and cheering. You know, it could be anywhere, but we have to remind ourselves we are in North Korea.
The air show was also an insight into North Korean life, as tourists had never really been allowed to mix with locals before. But we were free to roam in the crowd of 20,000 North Koreans. I was impressed by the pavilions selling souvenirs, clothing, soft furnishing, toys, showing a degree of commerce and private enterprise, not usually apparent.
The North Koreans are very poor and lives in challenging conditions. But just looking at the way they maintain these vintage airplanes, kept them airworthy for so many years. They're extremely resilient people. I wish them and the airline, Air Koryo, the very best for many more years to come.